I wanted to talk for a few minutes today about self-forgiveness because it's something that's been coming up in a lot of sessions lately, and so it's something that's been on my mind. And it really relates to some of the things I've been talking about with respect to heart rate variability and the vagus nerve. Because one of the things that research has shown is that our heart rate variability is really affected by our ability to forgive, that resentment causes stress. So I haven't really talked about this in videos, but I posted a little bit about it. Heart rate variability is it's the variation between when our heart speeds up when our sympathetic nervous system is activated, and our heart slows down when our parasympathetic nervous system is activated. And so the greater the variation, the more variability in our heart rate, the better, because that is what allows us to relax more quickly after our sympathetic nervous system has been activated. And so when our heart rate variability is low and sort of fixed and not very changeable, what that means is that when we face stressors, we are slower to recover and come back into a state of equilibrium. And so it's really essential to be, because we're constantly faced with stressors in our life, it's essential to be looking at things that we can do to improve our heart rate variability and to really care for that. And so one of those things is forgiveness. And I'm thinking today specifically about self-forgiveness and about how long we end up holding resentments against ourselves and why that might be the case. So, I've talked to countless clients who've spent years ruminating and beating themselves up for mistakes that they've made. And I know that I myself have done something similar. And as I think about it, I think part of the reason that we might do that is because part of it is that we think that we need to be punished and that this is our way of doing penance. And then part of it is perhaps in thinking that if we can hold on to this resentment against ourselves, then maybe we won't make the same mistake again. And the second has definitely been proven false in research, that it's not actually the case that people who beat themselves up for a long time after they've made a mistake are less likely to make the same mistake again. In fact, it appears that the people who beat themselves up and who are unable to practice self-forgiveness are more likely to make the same mistakes again. So try to let go of that one. And I think the really big piece is just in really recognizing that this thing that you're holding on to, that you think is helping you, and this is so often the case, this thing that you think is helping you from making the same mistakes is actually the thing that's preventing you from wellness. It's actually the thing that's causing you pain. And it's really essential to practice letting go. So just a quick tip for one of the things that you can do if you start to notice that you are ruminating on a mistake that you've made and that you're feeling that sting of what happened. So one thing to know is that when you are feeling that, your sympathetic nervous system is being activated. And this is why that lack of forgiveness towards self can be a risk factor for chronic pain. And it's something that I see so often in clients. But each time you beat yourself up for this thing, you are flooding your nervous system with cortisol, with adrenaline, and it's hurting you. So when you notice that's happening, this is what's helpful about mindfulness. You can really bring some self-compassion to the experience. So first, just noticing, wow, this habit is happening again. I'm really beating myself up for this. And acknowledging, this really hurts when I think about this mistake that I've made. Connecting then to common humanity. Reminding yourself that you're only human, that as a human being, it's in your nature to make mistakes. And that it's completely unrealistic to expect that you would have moved through this life without having made some mistakes. And then the last piece of self-compassion is the self-kindness of offering yourself some words, the sorts of words that you might offer to a friend who was having a difficult time forgiving themselves. Not just the kind of words dismissing their concerns, like, oh, don't worry about it, it's going to be okay. But really tapping into kindness of, like, what would that person really need to hear? What do you need to hear in that moment? And maybe it's something along the lines of, you did the best that you could with the tools that you had in that moment. And I think it's helpful to know that when you start doing this, you might experience something called blowback, or kind of like a backdraft. So you start trying to offer yourself kindness, you feel so undeserving of it that it actually triggers the opposite sorts of feelings. And again, this is where mindfulness can be helpful, of just noticing, okay, this is where I am right now. It feels forced to offer myself this kindness and compassion. And I don't need to beat myself up for the fact that it feels forced. And I'm going to keep doing it anyway. Because that's often when it's really tempting to stop. So if you have any questions about self-forgiveness, it's something that I'm really passionate about. I feel like it's changed my life, and I would love to offer guidance around what helped me most and what's helped clients the most. So feel free to message me or comment in the comment section. And thank you for watching.